Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second annual Black Women Leading in Law, a tribute to the late Jean Camper Cahn. I want to extend my warm welcomes to each and every one of you, and thank you all for coming out on this Thursday evening as we pay tribute to a legendary Black woman who was a bastion of social justice, architect of UDC Law's predecessor school, the Antioch School of Law, and most of all, an example to us all. Yes. So my name is Jayla Tosin. I'm a 3L here at the, thank you, yes, I'm a 3L here at the University of District of Columbia's David A. Clarke School of Law. I am a first generation law student. Thank you. And I'm the eldest of 5, right? Mm-hmm. I'm leading my tribe, right? Yeah, for sure. So my law school journey has been both fruitful and transformative. I started this program at 22 years old, and I'll be graduating at 25 years old, right? Thank you. So over the course of 3 years, I've learned, I've grown, I've shed old mindsets and habits and developed new. I've developed lasting mentors and friendships. And most importantly, I've been trained and molded into a true advocate of justice. Thank you. As I become the first in my family to graduate from law school, I cannot accept my accomplishments without paying utmost respect to those who paved the way for me. I'm grateful to UDC Law for accepting me and supporting me through this rigorous program. I thank our generous donors and supporters who invest in the education of our students every year. And I'm exceptionally grateful to the late Jean Camper Cahn for leading the way, laying the foundation for this law school, and making a space for Black women to learn law. I would like to take a moment to address my class, the class of 2024. First, I want to let you all know that I'm proud of you. We did it. We made it. We are the new generation of attorneys. We are the change we want to see. I really think of this journey as a never-ending relay race where we continue to pass the baton to those who succeed us. And in this never-ending relay race, in practicing law, we are approaching the baton. It's right there. And it is our duty to take that baton, or more literally that degree, and run until we cannot run anymore. May we carry the Cahn legacy in all of our endeavors and prove to the world what a graduate from Jean Camper Cahn's law school looks like. Fierce. Thank you. Yes. Fierce, focused, ethical, loving, and zealous about her work. May the class of 2024 take that baton and the legacy bestowed upon us by the late Jean Camper Cahn and Edgar Cahn, and practice law, promote justice, and change lives. And on behalf of the University of the District of Columbia, in our nation capital's only public, historically Black law school, UDC Law, the university's visionary leadership, our board of trustees, President Eddington, his cabinet, Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Massey, the DC School of Law Foundation, the Cahn family, faculty, and staff, welcome to the second annual Black Women Leading in Law. Tonight, we gather to celebrate the courage, ambition, and determination of Black women leading in law. And it is my pleasure to introduce the daughter of the late Joyce BPS, who was an alumna and law professor here at UDC, as well as a member of the DC School of Law Foundation Board. So let's give a warm round of applause for Ms. Christina BPS.
Good evening, everyone. So wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much for the introduction, Jayla. My name is Christina BPS, and I'm just so honored to be here with all of you today. For most of my life, UDC Law has been a force of positivity and just sheer inspiration. My connection with the law school is through my mother, Joyce Stanley BPS. She began her first year as a UDC Law student at age 47. That's right. It was 1993, and I call it the year that she reclaimed her life. My older brother had just passed away the year before, and my mother's healing process led her to this search for a new path and a new purpose in life. UDC Law came to represent not only a new degree, but a new chapter and a new family in her life. It was an environment where she just flourished. She found like-minded professors, classmates, people from all different experiences and backgrounds. And they were all just passionate about law, and she loved that and loved being in that environment. My mom did struggle at times to balance her full-time course load. And it didn't help that I was constantly in her way and a bit of a handful at times. Needless to say, she found a way to keep up with her coursework. And in spite of these challenges, she became a pillar in her community of students. Everyone wanted to collaborate with her and work with her. She actually spoke at her commencement in 1996, which was such a joy for my family, and we were just so proud of her accomplishment. She then went on to serve on the staff of the late DC Council member Hilda Mason, but her relationship with UDC Law did not end there. Throughout her work with the council, and later when she started a Social Security disability law practice, my mother stayed grounded and connected with the UDC Law community, and it was still her family. Eventually, she returned, and this time it was as a faculty member. She led the HIV/AIDS legal clinic with a co-teacher. And this opportunity allowed her to do what she loved the most, and that was uplifting her community and finding hope in an uncertain place. She used her pharmacy and medical backgrounds to teach her students how to serve that same purpose for their clients. And some of the clinic's clients were just facing unthinkable challenges. They were navigating life with HIV and AIDS in the late 90s and early 2000s. And many of them were facing just such an uncertain future. I remember seeing the clinic and its students as this source of hope for the clients, as a place to turn when they felt uncertainty. The students in the clinic gained an unparalleled understanding of the real-life challenges facing these members of our community here in DC. 2 years ago, we lost my mother to cancer. And I know she would be just overjoyed to see all of you gathered here today, this beautiful community. She would reflect on the incredible women in law who we will hear from and honor today. And I know she would marvel at just how passionate and how powerful this community is, more than ever today. In all of you, I see her legacy, and I see the hope that she believed in. If she were here today, I think that she would remind all of us to never give up on life, and that we always have the ability and the power to write our next chapters. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for having me here today. Thanks so much.
Christina, thank you for being with us here this evening and sharing memories of your mother, Professor Joyce Baytips. I hope what came through Christina's remarks, I hope what came through those remarks to me came through those remarks to you. Professor Baytips' presence and dedication to this law school is a testament to the actualized vision of Jean and Edgar Cahn. And we remain grateful for her example and for continuing Jean and Edgar's work. And we thank you, Christina, and your family and friends for your continued support of UDC Law. Thank you. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Wanette Johnson, and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the Dean and the Professor of Law at the University of the District of Columbia, David A. Clarke School of Law. We say the whole name here at least once. It is a pleasure to be here with you all to honor the life and legacy of Jean Camper Cahn, to celebrate Black women leading in law today, and to uplift our next generation of social justice advocates. This is our second year paying tribute to Jean Camper Cahn, who, along with her husband Edgar Cahn, established UDC Law's predecessor school, Antioch School of Law. And of course, most of us know Jean Camper Cahn as the co-founder of our predecessor law school, but Jean was a change agent long before that. She was already breaking barriers and fighting for civil rights long before her foray into legal academia. In fact, I believe it is that activism that set the stage for what she would eventually do in legal academia. Jean was exposed to and participated in civil rights activities from an early age by working closely with her father, Dr. John Emery Toussaint Camper. I love that name. According to a Washington Post article paying tribute to Jean, Dr. John Camper, a medical doctor, counted among his friends Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston, and Jean's godfather, Paul Robeson. It was Dr. Camper who organized his network of doctor friends to raise money to assist the NAACP in filing the appeal of the Brown v. Board of Education case. According to the article, Dr. Camper's efforts did not stop there. He was also on the picket line with his daughter, Jean Camper. Our Jean was there with him. They picketed the Ford Theater, which would not hire Black employees or let them view shows. They picketed a bank that would not hire Black tellers or deposit a Black person's check. They even picketed a taxi cab company that Dr. Camper believed would not pick up Black people for rides. Jean was among the pioneering Black students who bravely integrated the Emma Willard School in New York. Her education journey continued at Northwestern University and Swarthmore College, where fate would bring her face to face with Edgar Cahn, her longtime pen pal of sorts. More on that in a second. Later, Jean pursued her education at Yale Law School. In the Washington Post Tribute, Jean is quoted as saying, "I was given an education, a lot more than most of my people would ever see, and I was expected to do something for them." Jean did not lose sight of that. Together, Jean and Edgar, remember the pen pal from Swarthmore, wrote The War on Poverty, an article which laid the foundation for the National Legal Service Program, the Urban Law Institute, and again, most markedly, UDC Law's predecessor school, Antioch School of Law. Jean's path was marked with resilience and determination. She fought courageously for civil rights and to ameliorate the underrepresentation of marginalized groups. For instance, according to a Yale Law Journal tribute to Jean, she made critical contributions to the successful defense of Congressman Adam Clayton Powell Jr. when the House of Representatives refused to seat him. Jean was a force. And in the words of our beloved co-founder, Edgar Cahn, Jean gave because she could not stop giving any more than she could stop fighting. We are here because of our founders, their pursuit of justice and their fight for civil rights. Today, this law school, this mission-driven, practice-oriented institution stands as the only public law school in and for the nation's capital. We stand as a top producer of justice advocates and change makers. Our students dedicate thousands of hours annually through their work at our clinics, externships, and other experiential opportunities to working in service to residents of DC and surrounding areas. We have maintained Jean and Edgar's belief that a practical legal education plays no small part in the making of a more just and equitable society, and we continue to educate students from traditionally underrepresented groups to practice law, promote justice, and change lives. Thank you. Tonight, we pay special tribute to Jean Camper Cahn as her movement of conviction and discernment has impacted all of our lives. I am deeply grateful for Jean Camper Cahn and the example she provides for our students and all Black women, especially Black women leading in law. I'd be remiss if I did not mention in this moment of paying tribute and thinking about the work that Jean started here at UDC and the work that we continue to do, that this week is Giving Week at UDC. And today is specifically dedicated to supporting our law school. Take a look at this video, which chronicles some of the important work we do here at UDC Law.
The community that we have goes beyond those who are physically at UDC. It extends to donors, people like you who take the time to invest so that people like me could get full tuition scholarships to become the first attorneys in their family. That is amazing.
Students that come through this law school were never meant to just practice law. We were always supposed to be change agents. We were always supposed to be finding ways to help the less fortunate.
You can support our students by visiting supportudclaw.com. And if you look at the screen, there is a QR code that you can use right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your support in helping me to continue the legacy of Jean and Edgar Cahn. Thank you. So now the moment we've been waiting for. Tonight, I am honored to be joined by the first Black woman to serve as Attorney General for the United States, Loretta Lynch. Madam Attorney General Loretta Lynch is a prominent figure in both public service and private practice and is renowned for her exceptional expertise in navigating complex legal landscapes. As the former Attorney General of the United States, A.G. Lynch brings a wealth of experience and insight to her current role, partner at the Paul Weiss Law Firm, where she advises clients on multifaceted government and internal investigations, as well as high-stakes litigation matters. Since her return to private practice in 2019, A.G. Lynch has been at the forefront of some of the most sensitive and critical investigations and litigation matters, guiding clients through challenges that encompass significant regulatory concerns, international dimensions, and profound reputational considerations. At Paul Weiss, she chaired the Civil Rights and Racial Equity Audits practice, a legal team with a dedicated focus on conducting racial equity audits and other civil rights audits. Clients commend A.G. Lynch for her unparalleled skills and her ability to infuse any situation with gravitas and experience. They seek her counsel for her remarkable breadth of experience and unique service, recognizing her as a truly exceptional advisor in the legal arena. A.G. Lynch's tenure in government service is equally distinguished as the first African-American woman to serve as U.S. Attorney General from 2015 to 2017. She led a vast array of agencies and offices, supervising major investigative bodies and litigating divisions within the Department of Justice. Her extensive career spans over 15 years under Presidents Obama and Clinton, during which she held multiple Senate-confirmed roles, including U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. In recognition of her outstanding leadership and legal acumen, A.G. Lynch has received numerous accolades, including being named a distinguished leader by the New York Law Journal and recognized as one of Benchmark Litigation's top 250 women in litigation. Chambers and Partners, an organization that the industry relies on for global practice guides, has also distinguished her as a Band 1 practitioner in various categories, highlighting her exceptional contributions to the legal profession. A.G. Lynch is a graduate of Harvard University, holding both a JD and a BA in American Literature. Her dedication to the pursuit of justice and her unparalleled expertise continue to make her a guiding force in the legal community, shaping outcomes and fostering positive change on both national and international scales. Please join me in welcoming Madam Attorney General Loretta Lynch to our Black Women Leading in Law series. Working, it's on. How about yours, A.G. Lynch?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So now we get to the fun part, right, where we get to ask A.G. Lynch some questions, have a wonderful conversation. And so we thought we'd do this conversational style. So imagine we're in your living room, we've come over for a visit, and we're going to have a conversation, and you get to sit in, listen in, and maybe ask a few questions at the end. All right, so my first question, A.G. Lynch, Jean Camper Cahn co-founded Antioch Law School with her husband Edgar Cahn in 1972. I often wonder, thinking back to 1972, what that must have been like for her as a Black woman and what I can learn from that as a Black woman law dean. When you reflect on that time and what you know about Jean's journey, what are your thoughts?
So first of all, thank you, Dean Johnson, for having me here this evening.
Yes.
It is such an honor to join you and to join the UDC Law School community in commemorating and celebrating the life and legacy of Jean Camper Cahn, a woman who was extraordinary by any means, but within the law was truly not just a rebel, but a leader and an inspiration for all of us. When you point back to the time of the founding of the predecessor law school, Antioch, I think about the early 70s.
Yeah.
And there was so much going on in terms of social upheaval. The civil rights movement was really still pretty prevalent. You know, we just passed some important statutes, Civil Rights Act, Fair Housing Act, et cetera, but the hard work was still out there. And when I think about what Jean and her husband were facing, but particularly Jean, as a black woman with a stellar education herself, fully aware of the benefits and the realities and the possibilities of the law, she was creating something, and she was bringing herself to the field of law at a time when she wasn't fully recognized as complete. You know, women were still not recognized as complete in the 70s, and some would argue there's some challenges today still going on. But, you know, when you think about how Jean Camper Cahn organized her life, it was always with this sense that she was going to inhabit it fully. And I think the challenges that she faced were from people who could not understand and could not accept a black woman who refused to be limited by other people's visions of her. You know, she had her own vision for herself, for the educational system that she thought would be so important to the legal profession, and she also had a vision for the legal profession as well. I mean, she literally enlarged it. You know, in the early 70s, you did not have as the clear and consistent profession you have now, public service attorneys. You had many who were struggling and were working and were dedicated. And don't get me wrong, people have always fought. But you did not have the governmental commitment that we have today to legal aid. The governmental commitment that we have at the federal level, the state level, just the sort of things we take for granted were not part of the thought process at that time, but they were in Jean Camper Cahn's mind. And so she was facing a world that looked at her and put her in a box. You know, you're a woman, well, you have one role. You're black, well, are you even a person, you know, under the law? And she never accepted that. So I think for her, it was always pushing against those barriers and pushing against those boundaries. And the reality is, things have changed a lot. I never discount progress. Yes. You know, we have made some wonderful progress in so many parts of American society. But I think when we see the tensions that we're facing now, it's when people look at frankly, people of color, and still look at women of color, and try and define us in a way that doesn't accept our full humanity and our full ability to control our lives and to control the law and to take our place in the law. So I've always been grateful for Jean Camper Cahn for never giving into that, quite frankly. That to me is a wonderful example for all of us.
Absolutely. A.J. Lynch, you raised, I think, several good points in your comments to the last question. I want to pick up on something you said about being able to be in these leadership positions and showing up as your full self. And so I wanted to ask a question about leadership and authenticity. In leadership, you engaged with a wide variety of people in institutions. How do you maintain your authenticity? How do you show up as your authentic self in leadership roles?
You know, I think it's everyone finds their way as a leader, but ultimately you have to be yourself. You know, when I first became a young prosecutor and I first joined the U.S. Attorney's Office, someone literally said to me, you know, when we first met you, we thought you were too nice to be a prosecutor. My college and law school friends are laughing at that one. But everyone has this preconceived notion of what certain professions or roles or positions are, but you have to make them your own. And I always hearken back to the best advice that my own mother gave me, which was, people are going to look at you and they're going to think they know who you are. They're going to try and define you, and they're going to try and categorize you. And don't ever let them do that. You define yourself. You set out who you are and who you want to be. So as we move into leadership positions in particular, and the thing about being a leader, I've had the opportunity to lead a number of wonderful organizations, you know, leading the Department of Justice, was, for me, it was literally a dream come true. I grew up as a baby lawyer in Brooklyn, in the U.S. Attorney's Office there, where I spent a lot of time with the victims of crime, all types of crime, and really felt that my focus and my role was to ensure that people had the protection of the law when they just felt the burden of the law. You know, that's usually what happens in so many challenged communities. And so for me, it was always a privilege to lead the Department of Justice. And you have to decide what kind of leader you're going to be. And I always felt that my role was to work for the people in the office that I was leading, to make sure they had what they needed to get the job done and execute on the priorities that we set. But you have to be clear who you are. And one of the things I think it's clear for women in leadership in particular is that there's always somebody out there that wants to test you. Always.
Preach on it, yes.
It will come when you least expect it. Sometimes you're expecting it because of a certain position, but it will come when you least expect it. But there's always somebody out there who wants to test you. And sometimes I'm not even sure they plan to do it. But they're in a position where you're resolving something or you're finishing something. And in my view also is that the best leaders listen more than they talk. Much more than they talk. And so you want to hear everybody, you want to take everything in, but at the end of the day, someone's got to make a decision. And when you're in charge, that person will be you. And frankly, women are used to that. You know, we run so many things and we resolve so many issues every day. But when you move into certain circles, business, government, many areas of law still today, people cannot accept you in that role. And so they will test you. And then you have to decide, how do you respond? And it's a function of personality, but it has to be clear and it has to be in control. And you have to end the discussion with that. You know, it's not up for debate. And that's how you take the reins of leadership, I think, whenever you are in those positions of challenge.
Absolutely, thank you. I mean, this conversation is going so well. I can just sort of pick up after each statement. We are a mission-driven institution. Our students come here because we preach social justice, we teach social justice, we train social justice. This is what they want to do in their respective positions, post-graduation, post-bar exam. And oftentimes, students will ask, given who I am, given where I am, given my stage in my career, how do I get started? How do I do this work, right? How do I live out this mission as I go forward into the world as an attorney?
You know, I think one of the best things for me about being an attorney is that there's so many ways to live out that mission. There really are. You know, we think of social justice sometimes as just working for certain types of organizations. That is very important. It is vital. These organizations need help. They need talent. They need all of your talent. They need your financial support too. I will put that plug in. But social justice really is a concept, frankly, that I think I'm glad to see we're taking even outside of social justice agencies. And it can be a mindset wherever you work. I get this question a lot actually from young corporate lawyers who say, I want to maintain a commitment to social justice, but I love corporate work. I love the transactions. I love putting deals together. I love the business side of it. And that's great because you have to have that mindset in every aspect of American life if we are ever going to change every aspect of American life. We cannot leave it to people who have run this country forever the same way and expect there to be any difference. We have to be in there also making those decisions, pushing organizations, and there are ways to do that as well. And so, you know, I think it's really part of everything. But I think for people who are just coming out of law school, it's very daunting. Whatever your path is, to know how to get started. It really is. And it was that way for all of us who sat in your chair. It really was. And so what I say to everyone is you're making the first important step. You've chosen the law. And I thank you for that. I really do. Because as you can see, we really need you. You've chosen UDC Law, and I thank you for that, because we really need this vision and this mission to be an integral part and to be an elevated part of legal discourse. And so as you move forth into the world, the first thing I always tell young lawyers is learn your craft. Learn your craft and become the best you can be at whatever it is in this great profession of ours that you love. And you learn that by trying different things. You learn that by jumping into an organization whose mission appeals to you. And you may get there and you may say, the mission appeals to me, but I actually thought I wanted to be a litigator and be in court, but I love policy. Maybe I need to be on the Hill. Maybe I need to move into that aspect of social justice and bring this consciousness to the halls of Congress, where Lord knows it's needed. So maybe you start off loving policy and you realize, I actually like working with individuals, and you want to become a family lawyer. So that you learn it by moving into different areas and finding what resonates with you. And you will find it. You absolutely will. And sometimes it will be surprising. The job you thought was going to be perfect for you, you realize it's a wonderful place, they're great people, it doesn't touch my soul, and that's okay. You have contributed your skills and talents, and they have taught you something, and you can all be elevated, and you can move on and find something else. And what I also always tell people in your position, all of you students in particular, never be afraid to jump, to take that leap. I was a young lawyer on Wall Street. I graduated from Harvard College, Harvard Law School. My classmate Jonathan is here tonight with me. My other classmates are here also as well. And we've all done different things. And after 5 years on Wall Street, one night I literally passed out at my desk. Just passed out from exhaustion. I did not know that was really something that was diagnosed, but it was there. Spent the night in the hospital and thought, how do I find a way to use my talents in a way that resonates with me? And so for me, talking to different people, I ended up becoming a prosecutor and found my place. But that doesn't have to be your place. And you try different things and it will resonate with you, and you make that leap and you get off of what can be sometimes, an assembly line. Even at a place as wonderful as this, the view that we have to work at a certain organization, there's so many wonderful social justice organizations out there for you to find, for you to start. So I'd say that when people tell you you literally can do anything with a law degree, they are right. But it can be daunting at the beginning. So learn your craft. Start with an area that draws your attention and draws your heart, and find what resonates with you. And when you start working, you will meet other people doing different things. You will start working on cases that will lead you into areas that you did not know were possible. I spent 11 years as a prosecutor in Brooklyn, my first round in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and with the turn of the political wheel, ended up having to leave, went to a law firm, but was fortunate enough to connect with former DOJ lawyers who were teaching a trial advocacy course at the Rwandan War Crimes Tribunal. And I was able to combine the teaching that I had loved to do, I loved to teach trial advocacy, with my prosecutorial background, and work on one of the greatest social issues of the world at that time, which was finding justice after the Rwandan genocide. Now, can you find justice after something like that? It's hard to say, after one of the worst crimes that humanity can commit. But what gave me hope was seeing that, even in the wake of that tremendous tragedy, we still turned to the law to find some redress for victims, to create new systems, to build new governments, and to find hope for people who had lived through one of the worst atrocities that we had ever seen. So it will take you places you had never dreamed if you get off that path and open up your heart for it. It is out there for all of you. It absolutely is. That's my promise to you. I know you'll all find it.
That resonates so deeply with me after 2 years of practicing law, I took a job as a legal writing instructor, and I taught case briefing for the first time, and I said, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And now I get to, with an incredibly talented group of faculty and staff in this whole community, I get to make lawyers. And it is very gratifying. So I read this article, and I think a lot of us have read this article about the glass cliff, right? And this is, where women, sometimes too often black women, are appointed to leadership in organizations where there's a crisis, and without the adequate resources to address the crisis, but with the expectation of ameliorating it. What are your thoughts about the glass cliff as it relates to black women leading in law?
I think it's really an interesting phenomenon. I think you're absolutely right that you often see black women ascending to certain leadership positions when an organization, as you noted, may be either in a crisis or struggling or at an inflection point. And so that leads to the thought that we often have of like, how can we only get stuff when it's fallen apart?
Yeah.
But actually, the more I've thought about that, the more I've actually seen it as a reflection sometimes of pulling in the person who's probably been working behind the scenes already to get things done. Because if there's one thing that black women do, it's keep things together, often with little to no recognition. And I say this as someone who grew up in the Baptist church, so believe me, I know whereof I speak. So you have these situations often where women do the unpaid labor, they do the extra labor, they do the volunteer work beyond just the job, and they often are the ones who have the deepest knowledge of these organizations. And so I think as everyone else who is looking for a resume building opportunity leaves, often that's who's available to take these positions. But I think it can be a tremendous opportunity for women to finally step into what is an acknowledgement of what they have already been doing. Because there's nothing out there that women can't do. Nothing.
Nothing.
I think it was Du Bois who said there's nothing more determined than a woman who's determined to rise.
Amen.
So I think, but it does bring the challenges of pulling in resources, of raising awareness, and being the face of an organization that may be struggling.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's putting you in what is considered to be, by all the business school experts out there, the best place ever for advancement, which is find a problem and solve it. Yep. Find an issue or a troubled situation and turn it around. And that is the strength of black women for generations. We've turned around communities, we've turned around churches, we have turned around governments, we have elected presidents, right? So the power is there. The ability is there, the competence is there. What's often not there is the recognition for it. So it's time to stand up and demand it. Absolutely. And so I think it is a phenomenon, but I view it as a tremendous opportunity for leadership. And I will tell you what happens after the glass cliff. Having seen this, when you go into a situation as a black woman at being asked to turn around a troubled situation, you will push and push and push, and you'll bring out the best in people, because women tend to have a more consensus style of leadership. Not always, everyone's an individual, but you will bring people together, and then when the ship is righted, somebody wants to come in and take it and lead it again.
Exactly.
And that's really a true test of leadership, to say that after the investment of resources and commitment and personal investment that someone has made, you have to fight for the recognition to stay where you are, and in fact, be recognized for what you've done.
Thank you. So, going from that, I think of myself, as a grit and grind person, right? If there's a task, I'm going to dig in, I'm going to do it. There's a group of students who work outside of my office, and one of them told me today, I see you've been leaving earlier. I'm proud to see that. And I said, yes, of course. But I want to just ask you about work-life balance. There is always so much to do in these leadership roles, so many constituents to engage. When you think of leadership in your personal life, how do you find balance, or is that something that even exists?
I don't know who has the answer to that, Jean Johnson, to be honest with you. And it depends upon the situation. I think I certainly understand and have always ascribed to the view that you can have it all but not at the same time. And that's the challenge. But that doesn't mean the challenges don't come at you, more than once and from many different directions all at once. I think sometimes I actually am proud to hear that you're leaving earlier too. And I say that because I think it's important when you're in leadership to model what you want for people who are coming after you. Yes. And it's very easy to forget sometimes, because it is easy to say, you know what, I'll just do this myself. Yeah. I'll get it done, it'll be finished, and then we can all move on to the next task. But it's important to stop and say, but what am I modeling for the younger women coming after me? That they have to give up every night and their lives as well? It's not what we want for them. We want them to have that place and have that place that they hold for themselves and their families also. So for me, it's been a challenge, quite frankly. It's been a challenge now that I'm married. It was a challenge when I was single. I tried to basically do it by saying I want to set aside one evening a week that is just for the family. And I learned that actually from one of the lawyers in my first Wall Street firm. And he was a young man, and he said he was doing very well at the firm, and he said, I have set aside this night for my family, and it works for me. And I always thought that was a great example for everybody, men and women. So my husband and I try and have that. But there are times when the world takes over. When you're the Attorney General, there is no time off. But that's something that you go into understanding that. And you know that that's going to be different. I think when you don't have that type of position, it's really important to carve out what is most important to you and hold to that. And what I always say, what someone said to me years ago, they said, you have to learn that no is a complete sentence. Because I would agree to everything. Or I'd say, I wish I could, but I've got this, that, and the other. And a good friend of mine who was a very successful lawyer, and just a wise person, said you have to learn that no is a complete sentence, or that doesn't work for me is a complete sentence, because you have to maintain that balance. If you burn out, then there's nothing for anybody. And I think women often forget that, thinking that we are indispensable. But as I learned that night in the hospital when I fell out at work, they'll pick up and go on without you.
Yes, they will. Jean was committed to building the next generation of lawyers committed to social justice. That was her mission, as we have acknowledged here tonight. And she actualized that mission with a school devised and purposed regarding that mission. When you think about mission, purpose, and the work you do now, the work you did as Attorney General, as a U.S. State's Attorney, the work you did in Rwanda, and your many other roles, how do you get your constituents focused on that work? Those new attorneys who report to you, those you report to, et cetera?
I think, finding that mission is important, but sometimes the mission finds you. That's happened to me a lot. And so you don't know when things will come to you. I think it's a matter of figuring out what your clear priorities are, and that comes to you in life. Don't expect to graduate and say, okay, the three most important things in my life are these three things here, and it'll change over time too as your family expands and grows and you focus on the next generation. So I think focusing on the issues that are important, for me it was finding a way to give back, not just to my community, but in a way that contributed to the protection of people, which is why I became a prosecutor. And from that experience flowed a lot of things and a lot of opportunities. But it wasn't always a popular choice. It's not a popular choice now. I talk to people now and I have friends who have been prosecutors who now hold the view that people of color should not take those positions. My view is, if you want to leave it to the people who have been doing it for years the wrong way, that's one thing. It's not what I would choose, because there are very many situations that you could only change from the inside, and you need to be informed by having a different worldview and a different connection to the criminal justice system, and an understanding of what you are doing when you put someone through that system that some people just don't have, not through a fault of their own, but because they just have a different experience than you. And until that experience is infused throughout the system, I think we have a responsibility to join it on both sides, prosecution and defense. So that was it for me, but it may not be it for everybody. So as you find the things that are important to you, you will gravitate to those positions, and they will become a part of what you do. So even if you leave one particular job, you can still seek social justice in other ways, either leading an organization or contributing to an organization or supporting an organization, and finding other ways as well. There are organizations that I still learn about that are doing such great work that I'm so glad they've come into my life, even at this point.
Wonderful. One last question. In one of her many law review articles, Jean talked about her reimagined version of a law school in Antioch, and she said something that was really very striking to me. She told the readers that they were not seeing the school through Lewis Carroll's looking glass. In other words, this is the real thing. She essentially said that in the process of students and educators freeing themselves from historically rooted restrictions, they were encouraging new ways of perceiving and learning the law. When we think about these positions we hold as Black women in leadership, in organizations, at law schools, how do we use our positions to disturb historically rooted restrictions, those restrictions that tend to stand in the way of us affecting change?
Sure, that's a great question. And obviously Jean Camper Cahn was an example of someone who did that. I think, again, she did it by being her whole self, and that's part of it. I think if the question is how do we use our positions and create the disruption that makes change, the first step is realizing that our very presence, frankly, is a disruption to the established order.
Absolutely.
It just is, and it still is. It still is. So our very presence is a disruption. It's a change. And while that can make people uncomfortable, it presents incredible opportunities. You stand out. When you stand out, when you are different in the crowd of young people all joining an organization who are eager and all young together and maybe more homogenous based on whatever point in their background, standing out is an advantage. It's a benefit. It makes you, it points people's attention on you at a time when that's what you need. And with that attention, you can learn, you can grow, you can work with people that you might not be connected with otherwise. And so I've always viewed it as an asset to be different and to be a disruptor in that way, because it's there. So you might as well use it to your advantage. And so I think that's a big part of recognizing that we disrupt by being there, and that is actually a good thing to change the atmosphere, to move things around. None of us are here to make people comfortable. We're here to make a difference. That's what we are. And so you go into these roles and you sort of present yourself, and it's almost like saying silently, well, now that I have your attention, okay, we can move forward. We can get something done. So that's the first step, I think, is understanding that we are disruptors and it's not a bad thing. And the next step is having a mission, having a goal that you want to accomplish, and bringing in allies. Because if you're all there at the same place, presumably you all want the same things. And and the history of marginalized people, and particularly women of color, we have had to build allies and relationships with people over the centuries just to get things done. And so it is a skill. It is a skill that we have. It is a skill that can be deployed for the common mission of the organization that you're joining, that you're already disrupting. And then you become the person who has seen an issue and you have solved it, or you have fixed it, or you've moved it forward. And the attention on you, just because you're different, all of a sudden becomes a spotlight on your abilities. And that's what you want to do. And that's what I think this school is well positioning everyone to be able to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I am certainly grateful for your presence here, and I just want to, just bring everybody's attention to where we are. We are at the university's Student Center, and we've just finished the inauguration activities of our 10th president. And one of the things that we said over and over again to all the community members who came, they're at this university. We start from workforce development through the community college, through our bachelor's and certificate programs, all the way up to law school. That's what we do here at the University of the District of Columbia. Our very presence here, right, this disrupts the notion of the status quo, ideas that we can't do certain things. So I appreciate you very much, A.G. Lynch, for coming here and giving us these wonderful words. I believe we have a few minutes for some questions. Yep, I think you're projecting well. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm from UDC Law.
Excellent question. I think that just to make sure everyone heard, are there opportunities for students from a variety of law schools, unranked or lower tiered, to advance in government? So in government or corporate law, and how do we make that happen? How do we get there? There's absolutely opportunities for students to advance in every aspect of it. But again, I think it is an example of being in a situation where people try and put you in a box. People try and define you and limit you because of what they think your background is, or what they think something on your resume says about you. So the issue is, how do you break through that? And what we've been trying to do, a number of us in the legal profession have been trying to do that. In terms of corporate law, we expand where we recruit. We built bonds and connections with UDC, for example, and other law schools, and it's something that we try and push other firms to do. That's an effort that has to be made. In other positions, if for example, you're not thinking of a law firm but an organization, sometimes it can be getting before someone that may not be looking in your area for someone and saying, and literally asking for that opportunity, whether it is an internship, whether it is an informational interview, but building that relationship with an organization or entity that may not have previously been connected with your law school or your first place of employment, and connecting them in a way that may not lead to a job at first, but leads to a relationship that opens doors down the road. Because that will happen. That will happen. Because what everybody wants is somebody who can get the job done. That's what everybody wants. And so you're looking for a way to showcase the abilities and talents of people who more than get the job done, excel at the job, and put that in front of the right people. So, and it's one of the benefits, I think, of the mindset of UDC, which is, as you were saying with the quote from Jean Camper Cahn, it's not the old way of practicing law or teaching law. It is, frankly, a fuller way, a more complete way. And so building those connections and those relationships is the way to do that.
How you doing?
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pejme Guscott, class of 21.
Class of 21.
Fellow public servant for about 17 years, trying to transition out. But I have a question I'm asking on behalf. I kind of had the same question. What do you think are the benefits of having a mentor? And are there benefits to having a cross-cultural mentorship experience?
Mm-hmm. So I think having a mentor is incredibly beneficial. And the only thing better than one is more than one. I think sometimes particularly when you're first starting out, you think you have to find that one person who can guide you and shepherd you through your career. And sometimes that happens, but really what you'll discover is that there's several people out there who can play a mentoring role for you for different things. There may be the person who can mentor you in a specific work area. Like literally, they're 2 years ahead of you at work. They've been where you are. They can give you guidance on how to get the job done. But there may be somebody else who can give you guidance on how to balance that with work life and all, because of the way that they've structured their life. And so it's really a matter of being open to meeting different people, being curious about different people, and sometimes just asking people, I'd like to get better at a particular thing. Do you have any suggestions? Now, I will tell you that my husband's here with me tonight. He's not a lawyer. One of the things he always says is, and he's right, is that lawyers love to talk about themselves. Senior lawyers in particular. And it is really very true. And I've talked to many young lawyers who've said, I would love to, they're practicing in a law firm, I'd love to teach. And I've said, well, there's several of the partners here who teach, they're adjunct professors. Talk to them about it. Yeah. Oh, no, I can't do that. I don't know them. I haven't worked with them. I'm like, just say, I heard you were teaching. It sounds so exciting. Tell me about it. You'll be fighting to get away. But it is true. People do, and particularly lawyers, and we older lawyers, and I'm a senior lawyer too, we like to teach and we like to think we're imparting wisdom, but we do like to share what we've done. And so if you can figure out the issue, and it's different people for different issues, on cross-cultural mentors, yes, I think part of the practice of law is not so much knowing what to do as how to do it. And sometimes it is learning that kind of silent communication that goes on, particularly in law firms, between people who have either practiced together for a long time or their backgrounds are similar. And it's essentially, people call it culture, they call it the personality of a place, learning that and connecting with somebody who's skilled at that and saying, literally, you did a great job on that case, tell me about it. Or I'd like to get better at something, what are your suggestions? People will reach out to you and they will connect with you.
While I have the mic, I'm going to ask a quick question. I'm sorry if I'm cutting somebody in line. Hello, my name is Imani Robertson. I'm a 3L student here where I have the pleasure of serving as the SBA president. First and foremost, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Everything you've said tonight has been completely invaluable. But you mentioned earlier about the distinction between the protection of the law and the burden of the law. And I feel like far too often, those things aren't mutually exclusive. So during your time as a prosecutor, how were you able to navigate situations where you had a victim that was deserving of protection, but at the same time, you had an offender that was deserving of grace?
Mm-hmm. Well, those things are not mutually exclusive, as you noted. Mm-hmm. They really aren't. And so I always viewed my role as giving voice to the victims. And frankly, a lot of people in our communities are victimized with no voice, particularly women, young women and girls. They are victimized. They literally disappear, and nobody knows about it. Nobody talks about it. So I think that's very, very important to focus on all aspects of a matter. At the same time, as a prosecutor, you have a responsibility not just to the system, but to the person appearing before you as a potential defendant or a defendant, to make sure that their process is carried out as well. And so for us, and look, I will say, frankly, it's a lot different in the federal system. I always felt so much more fortunate than people who were struggling with these impossible caseloads and burdens. And balls were getting dropped, and so I think you have still a responsibility to make sure that as you prosecute a case, you're doing so in a way that considers the whole person. One of the benefits I had as a younger prosecutor also was my first iteration as U.S. attorney was under then AG Janet Reno. She was very much focused on crime prevention and also reentry as being just as important to the prosecutorial role as actually prosecuting a case, because she also viewed her role as protecting the community. And preventing crime means pulling everyone who might fall into the system, out of that. So I think you do it in many, many ways. You do have to find a way to give the victims a voice. You have to make sure that your process, whether from the investigation on, is fair. And you have to make sure that whoever's caught up in that has a voice as well. And it can be challenging. You know, there were times when, as one of the few black prosecutors in my office, I would have defendants come up to me in the hallway and ask me to explain their case to them. And one young man I remember said to me, you know, I need to figure this. I don't really understand what I've been charged with. And I said, you know, I really can't talk to you because, you know, your lawyer has stepped away, and I'm the prosecutor on the case. And he said, you know, I know that, and my lawyer's very nice. And he was. His lawyer was great. He was a wonderful lawyer. He said, he's very, very good. He said, but, you know, half the time I don't understand what he's really saying to me, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I said, look, I can talk to you if he's present. We'll find him and we'll have the conversation. But it has to be your decision ultimately as to what to do. So I always kept that in mind, that most of the people coming in front of me as defendants, by and large, didn't always understand what had happened and had trouble, you know, determining the best path to take. I will tell you, though, that sometimes you see people who make it their life's mission to go after elderly people or to harm young people or to harm children. And then you have to say to yourself, okay, I can get this person help, but I first have to remove them from an environment where they are literally ruining other people's lives. That's an important part of it also. And it just is. You know, everyone has a different view of that in terms of what prosecutors do. That's how I've viewed the position very much, as keeping in mind that you were there to serve the community.
I think we have time for just one more question. Just one more.
Good evening. My name is Craig Bass, and I'm a second year law student
Craig.
here. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about learning your craft, and that's advice that you give young lawyers. And that's something that resonated with me because as a law student, I tried to be as excellent as possible. So how do you define excellence, and how do you walk that out every day?
So I define excellence as ongoing effort towards excellence, because we're always learning and we're always growing. And sometimes I will tell you, Craig, you learn the most from the mistakes you make. I will tell you that. And I will also share with you that as brilliant and as talented as all of you are, and you are, I can tell, there will come a time when you'll have a case or an issue or a matter, and you'll make a mistake, and something will happen. And it will be one of the hardest, worst days of your life. And you will probably learn more from that than all the cases you've won up until that point. I always felt I learned more from the cases I lost than the ones I won. So excellence it's a goal, it's a journey, but don't ever be afraid to push so hard. And sometimes you may not make that, but that is also part of the journey. It is part of the journey to accept that and use it as an opportunity for growth. So for me, I never have a problem if somebody makes a mistake when they're working for me, because I made mistakes as a young lawyer. When I was a young lawyer and I was still on Wall Street, I was working for a partner who was considered, frankly, one of the meanest in the firm. And people were afraid of him with good reason. You know, he would yell at you, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is just work. Why are we yelling? And one day a group of us were working on a matter, and I don't even recall what the issue was, but somehow we made a mistake in the analysis of something. We either had the wrong case or the case had been overturned. I can't even remember what it was now. And we were petrified to go to him and say, you know, we gave you this information, but there's a flaw in the information we gave you. Because we also strive to be perfect all the time. But we had to do it because we had to correct it. And we went to him. It was like 3 of us all together on one team, standing there thinking, well, he can't shoot all of us, right? And we were like, look, here's what happened. And we went back and looked at this. We realized that there was an error in this analysis, and we have given you something that actually is not accurate. And he actually said, you know, this happens, and this is the best thing you do. Whenever you find a mistake, you own it. You own it, and you bring it along with the solution to someone. And he said, don't dump a problem in my lap. You've also given me the solution, because we brought him the right analysis. And he said, the other thing that I've never forgotten, that in the law, very few things go wrong that can't be fixed. except statute of limitations.
Exactly.
And at that moment, we would have taken a bullet for him at that point. And it taught me so much about learning that as hard as you can work and as good as you are, sometimes something may fall from the table that you've got, 50 million balls bouncing on. And when that happens, you own it, you take responsibility for it, and you present it along with the solution. Say, this is what happened, and here's how we're going to fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for being a part of this event tonight. I know so many of you had questions, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight and being a part of this. And I just really appreciate all of you for taking the time to be here. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this event. Thank you to Christina BPS. Thank you to Jayla Tolson, our student who gave us our welcome remarks. Thank you to our Director of Development, Adeshola Akintobi, who put this all together. Thank you to Reuben Cahn and Jonathan Cahn for all the work they're doing to help us uplift and support our efforts towards keeping our founders at the forefront. Thank you to Jamal Bailey, our alum, who Jamal just won't leave, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you, Jamal, for all the work you did in helping us to bring A.G. Lynch here, and all the support you continue to give to your alma mater. Thank you to Paul Weiss for their support of UDC Law. We greatly appreciate it. And of course, thank you to Madam Attorney General Loretta Lynch for coming to UDC and spending time with us.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.